Hello and welcome to Youth in Politics. I'm Justin Schnedt, and my guest is Republican gubernatorial candidate Matt Jacobson. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Good to see you.
I like to refer to an article in the Scarborough Leader, and you say, quote, "I want to be Maine's governor because I feel I have a unique skill set and experience that is applicable right now. We are on a path where there is a very real danger that we will be a generation that leaves Maine in a worse state than we found it. I cannot let that happen." Part of that unique skill set that you talk about is being president and chief executive officer of the Maine & Company, which is responsible for bringing jobs and attracting businesses to the state of Maine. How many jobs specifically has Maine & Company brought into the state, and what is that role in the state overall?
Two big questions. Let's start with the first one. Maine & Company is a privately funded, not-for-profit. Our mission is to bring and keep jobs in Maine. So we do that three ways. We focus on recruiting companies here. We try to help existing businesses stay, and we spend some time with early stage companies trying to get them started and funded. So start a business, keep a business, bring in a new business. That's the areas that we focus. In the last, I guess since I've had Maine & Company, we've recruited Athena Health out to Belfast. They're at 250 people on their way to about 800. Boston Financial Data Services is in Rockland, and they're at 250 people on their way to 400. Notify MD, we brought them first to Farmington, where they hired 120 people, and they've just announced 300 jobs, and they've began hiring in Winthrop. We announced this week a new pellet mill in Burnham. They're co-locating with Pride Manufacturing, which is the world's largest and North America's oldest wooden golf tee manufacturer, located in Burnham. They came to us and said, "We're about to leave Maine because our costs are so high. Can you help us stay?" So we looked at their process and at their program, and it turned out that what they needed was a perfect fit for what this pellet company that we were working with needed as well. So by co-locating, each of them will save millions of dollars in operating costs. They'll share the log yard, they'll share maintenance and human resources and all those things. Pride is going to keep their 145 jobs, and International Wood Fuels is going to add 45, plus a wood pellet capability. So, we tally what we do, but I'm comfortable saying that those companies that I just mentioned will hire 1,500 people in the next year or two. But there are other businesses. Maine Company is responsible for T-Mobile up in the Waterville area. They're at 800 people now. The distribution center that Walmart set up in Lewiston, I think they're at about 250 people now. The early stage companies that we've helped, other companies that have helped stay here, it's thousands of jobs. So Maine Company is a pretty effective force, considering we're completely privately funded. Occasionally we get some help from the state, but it's episodic. And we're 2.8 people. Well, there's 3 people. One works 4 days a week. I think a pretty effective model for how you recruit companies to Maine.
Continuing our conversation on the economy, part of your vision says, quote, "My vision for Maine is to compete and win in this new economy. We will build strong communities that attract jobs and families, providing choice and opportunity to our workers. We will create an economic climate in Maine that is competitive with other states and the global community." How specifically as governor will you do just that?
I think there's several steps that we have to take. I think first is just knowing what's possible. I mean, I was an executive with the Canadian National Illinois Central Railroad, where I had responsibility for all our international freight. So I spent time in Asia, not on some junket, but going over there to actually build business and create opportunity. And a lot of that freight that we developed went through the Auburn Intermodal Facility, which is on the St. Lawrence and Atlantic Railroad that I managed in Maine. So I get where we fit, and I get where we become world-class and how we compete in that world. Let me give you one example. And there are hundreds. But let me give you one example where as governor, you can focus the organization on doing those things where Maine can be uniquely successful. Let's look at cruise ships. See how much money we spend per year in Maine marketing cruise ships, trying to get them to come to Maine? It's $65,000. Think about that for a minute. Not very much, not a serious effort. But even so, about 200 ships visited Maine. What if we, instead of just threw $65,000 on it because I'm not sure why, what if we decided a goal of ours was every city in Maine that could host a cruise ship? I'm not talking about building new infrastructure, just the cities that exist today that could host a cruise ship had one every day that they could host one. How many ships would that be? Well, it's about 1,500 ships, the experts tell me. Okay, so let's make that happen, number one. Now that creates a certain kind of job, a lot of retail jobs, but fine. Then let's train. Since we have a relationship with the steamship line, let's make 80% of the officers on all those steamship lines trained at the Maine Maritime Academy. Nobody does it better than us. What if we decided, since we have that relationship with the lines, we're going to fix 10% of those ships a year? What are the tax incentives we have to put in place so that our shipyards would fix those world-class ships? What if we provision those ships with Maine food, with blueberries and lobster and the specialty foods they're developing? What if we decided that the headquarters companies and the reservation services for all those companies were located in Maine? And you can start to see where we build on what's unique about Maine, this beautiful place, these seafaring people that have worked on ships our whole life, and translate that into an opportunity to grow not only the $8 an hour retail jobs, which are fine. There's a segment of the population. My kids are going to be in high school someday. I'd love to have them have a job like that. But as we get deeper into that opportunity, we start being ship captains. We start fixing ships. We start being the financial services and the reservation systems. Why don't we have the best tourism school in the world? Why isn't that located in Maine? And if you put all those things together, we have unique competitive advantage. I define that as, how do I make the guy in North Carolina worry about how he's going to compete with Maine for jobs? And that's where, as a governor, where you see the opportunity, you're able to arrange our infrastructure to make that happen. Right now in Maine, tourism is our biggest industry, and yet there's no place in Maine where you get a 4-year degree in culinary arts or hotel management or terminal operations or anything to do with tourism. But yet at USM, you can get a degree in sports marketing. Now, I would argue that our educational assets aren't lined up with our business requirements, and that's one of the reasons why our economy is doing so poorly.
We'll get to the education issue in a minute. Let's talk about government spending and taxes. On your website, you say, as we rebuild the way government is organized, we will require coupling spending reductions and government efficiencies with a corresponding lowering of the state tax burden. This effort will take innovation and new thinking on how government delivers services. It will also require us to take a fresh look at our outdated tax code and make it simpler for more competitive and other states. There's a tax referendum this November that will increase the sales tax and lower the income tax. Number one, do you support it? And number two, what else needs to be done to fix what you call an outdated tax code?
Okay, big questions again, and well, I'll take a cut. Let me know if I finish it with all the answers. This referendum this fall, look, I wish them well. I think that this, it's not really tax reform, it's just a shell game. Was poorly thought out. I mean, you have some candy bars that get taxed in this new regime and some don't. Kit Kats don't because they have flour in them, but Milky Way does because they don't. Not very well thought out. Very difficult for a store owner to decide what he taxes and what he doesn't. Very difficult for the collection. We made it harder, I think, in a lot of respects. I don't think we thought it out very well. So I wish them well. I'm going to try to run a campaign and see if I can't have a referendum on the people that actually gave us this law rather than the law itself. Now then, how do we reform a tax code? I think we need to, in broad terms, we need to view it in a prism of, does it help companies in any of those three areas that we talked about before? Does it help a company come here? Does it help a company stay here? And does it help a new company form here? And we got to view our tax code in that manner. Obviously, we got to make enough money to pay for the services. And clearly, the way we offer services has been not around the pursuit of doing it the most efficient, cheapest way possible, but some other obligation or something. World-class organizations can be efficient and excellent. In fact, they have to be both. I worked for a railroad, the Canadian National Illinois Central, that went from 225,000 employees to 22,000 employees, and by every other measure is the best railroad in the world in handling freight. We can do the same thing in state government, but we've got to align our interests with efficiency and excellence.
We're going to leave it right there, but we're going to jump in right with that topic when we come back on Youth in Politics. Don't go away.